take you just on a brief stroll down memory lane here. Way back when I was, I suppose, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, the first cartoon that I remember was Dudley Do-Right. I don't know if any of the rest of you remember Dudley Do-Right, but he would come riding in on his white horse, oftentimes backwards on his white horse, to save the damsel in distress, who was Nell Fenwick. You know, Wikipedia has all this stuff on there that you never thought you'd need to know. And she would always be tied up on the railroad tracks, you know, and because the evil villain Snidely Whiplash. And some of you are nodding your heads. Yeah, that's a name you probably thought you would never hear again in your life. Snidely Whiplash. The evil villain would grab her and tie her up, you know, and it had the picture with ropes wrapped around her, just her feet sticking out on one end and the head on the other end, and there she is laying on the railroad track. And Dudley Do-Right would come riding in just in the nick of time before that train would run over her, and he'd pull her off the tracks and save the day. Some of you are nodding your heads, you remember that. Dudley Do-Right. He was kind of incompetent, but he was always there. Just by luck happened to be there at just the right time, if you remember. He was the first superhero I remember. Dudley Do-Right. Not too long after that, I remember watching Batman on TV, and all of the evil villains that he had to contend with every week. There was the Joker and the Riddler, and who else? Catwoman. Yeah, and Penguin, and that's all I can remember, but I know there was a whole bunch more. And after he had them all in jail, then every week somebody would escape from jail, you know, and so he'd just have to start all over again, you know, but he was always saving Gotham City from whatever evil villain was about to destroy the entire world, or at least Gotham City. And it was always, again, just in the nick of time. This superhero would come in and save the day. So, the question that I ask today is, why do we need a Savior? We're not tied up to the railroad tracks, are we? Jesus came to be the Savior of the world. But why do we need a Savior? I mean, aren't we all doing pretty well? Well, this last week, I spent several hours in an emergency room with a woman not from this congregation of Markville, who was suffering from an alcohol addiction. And she was struggling, just trying to deal with life on an everyday basis, and it's turned to alcohol, and her blood level was 0.27. She claimed she hadn't drank anything for 12 hours. No, more than that, 18 hours. She seemed relatively alert, considering it was 3 times the legal limit, so I can about imagine what it must be when she actually seems like she's been drinking. But her alcohol addiction has tied herself up like Nell Fenwick. She's got herself tied up in this rope, and she's laying on the railroad track, and the train is coming, and she doesn't even see it coming. But she has tied herself up. Last night, my oldest son is in a Christmas carol that is playing over at Malacca at the dinner theater over there. And I don't know if Charles Dickens intended it to be this way. I think he did. But what a story about greed. And how greed had, the greed of Scrooge, the children starving would walk by wanting money, or the people would come in and say, at this time of year we're going around collecting money for the orphans and the orphanages and all of this. Can we put you down for something? No. Don't put me down. Oh, you want to be anonymous? No, I want to be left alone. Go away. In his own greed, he had so much money, he didn't know what to do with it, he didn't spend it, he didn't improve his own quality of life because he had it. His greed controlled his life. And Scrooge had wrapped himself up in a robe. And he was laying on that railroad track. And the train was coming, and he didn't even see it coming. And the rest of the story is how he finally discovered the train was coming. This last week I heard of a baseball player, Sinshu something. He's not one of the most well-known baseball players, Sinshu Chu. Signed a contract with the Texas Rangers, 7-year deal, $134 million, almost $20 million a year, to play 162 games. $20 million a year. Now my math is kind of, I'm just using rough ballpark figures here, but the way I figure it, that $20 million a year could feed 100,000 starving children in a third world country. 100,000. That's more people in Pine County, Kennebec County, Isanti County, Carleton County, and Chisago County added together. And his salary could pay that many buy food for 100,000 starving children to play 162 games. And I don't know if you can blame him for that. Maybe he gives away a lot of it to starving children. I don't know. But think about our society's priorities. That we do that. That we pay somebody enough money to feed 100,000 starving children every year to play a game. Last night at the play, since my son was in it, my ex-wife was there. And seeing her reminded me of the pain that relationships sometimes cause us. The pain of broken relationships. And how painful going through that is. And how, so many times we tie ourselves up because of that pain, and it just drags us down and it just ties us up. And we put ourselves on that railroad track. Sometimes because we're not willing to get out of the relationship that we should. And other times because of the pain that leaving causes. And that train is coming and we don't even know it's coming. I have a cousin of mine who, to meet her, you would think, boy, she is one of the most together people you've ever met. But she told me a story that several years ago now, one winter, she was really struggling with life. She got in her van and she drove out on the lake. She knew the lake had open water in it. And she sat there for several hours trying to decide if she was going to drive into the open water. And depression had pulled her down. She had tied herself up because of the depression that she was going through. And she was laying on that railroad track. She saw the train coming. And she finally went and got help. And at least she saw the train coming and got the help that she needed. Because so many people do not. Maybe you all aren't in any of these situations. I hope you're not. I hope you've never been in one of these situations. and most of us probably have been. Some of us are probably in these situations yet today. We are broken people. We struggle every day because of things like this. We are broken and sinful, and because of that, we need a Savior. Because of that, we need Jesus Christ in our lives. I'm going to close with a song. And I've sung this for you before, I know that. So I guess my father would say, oh, that's a rerun. That's right. This song is actually one you probably have never heard anywhere but here. And I think that it really fits what I've just been talking about. And I'm going to sing it without piano. So I hope I start on the right key. I don't have any idea what key it is. So here we go. I wonder if this Christmas they'll begin to understand the Jesus that they celebrate is much more than man. 'Cause the way the world is, I don't see how people can deny the only way to save us was for Jesus Christ to die. And I know that if St. Nicholas was here, he would agree that Jesus gave the greatest gift of all to you and me. They led him to the slaughter on a hill called Calvary, and mankind was forgiven when they nailed him to the tree. But most of all the children, they're the ones I hope will learn that Jesus is their Savior and He's going to, and all days aren't the same. Perhaps they'll think about the word and see it spells His name. But I know that if St. Nicholas was here, he would agree that Jesus gave the greatest gift of all to you and me. They led him to the slaughter on a hill called Calvary, and mankind was forgiven. Yes, mankind was forgiven. We were all forgiven when they nailed him to the tree. So Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas. I wonder if this Christmas they'll begin to understand